Okay, here we are. Hello, and welcome to the 2020 series sponsored by the New York Film Academy. The 2020 series are creative conversations with visionaries about craft, creativity, and collaboration. I am Liz Hinlein, creative director and director, and I am so thrilled to say hello and talk today with Elicia Laport, visionary EP and amazing producer at home in Los Angeles. Hey, Elicia. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Liz. How are you? I'm good. I'm very good. How are you doing?
I know it's in our crazy, crazy world. I really want to show the audience that this amazing trailer of a compilation of work from RSA. Just give us a little run up of this. What are we seeing here in this trailer?
RSA Films stands for Ridley Scott and Associates. And so you are seeing a compilation of clips. We call it a RSA sizzle reel, but it includes snippets from both Ridley and Tony's features, as well as many of our short form projects and commercials since RSA began in the 1968, really took off in the 70s and 80s. And you will see it begins with the very famous Ridley Scott production of the launch of the Apple Macintosh in 1984. And that is an iconic commercial that we all know. And so you'll just see that little bit of snippet from that, and then it'll go off from there. So have at it.
Awesome. Charlie, let's play the tape. I guess we can make ourselves go away.
Those of you who know me, you know that I will settle for nothing short of greatness. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to change the world. What we do in life echoes in eternity.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
Nobody asks to be a hero. It just sometimes turns out that way.
I understand human emotions, although I do not feel them myself.
I'm not going to be the person I'm expected to be anymore.
You are what you are in this world. Either you're somebody or you're nobody. There's no turning back.
Just remember what this feels like. If you don't speak for them, who will?
Yes.
Glasses up.
Cheers.
Progress doesn't come overnight, but carry on, and one day, you'll be there.
Hello, Alicia. Now there you are. Hi.
Yeah.
So,
Hey.
oh God, that gives me the chills. That is so, like, every project is just so iconic. It really blows me away. Where did you get intersect with RSA? When did that happen for you?
Well, I have a fun little story. I had been a bidding producer at another production company for 7 years, and I was sitting in my office, which I shared with the executive producer at that time. And the head of the company came in and said, "I hear RSA is looking for a new head of production. Can we think of anybody who would be great for that job?" And I sat there and I went, "Me? And they both looked at each other and were like, oh, of course, that would be great. So I went in and interviewed and got the job. And that was 13 years ago. And I was promoted to executive producer last year before COVID hit. So I actually have never gotten to be in the office that I was going to be moved into, but I'm waiting. I'm excited.
But that's so modern. That's so today, being a virtual EP. So just break it down for me, because I love the title HOP, like head of production. What is the head of production, and what, in your mind, what is the head of production, and what is the EP, and how are those conduit or dovetail together?
Well, let's see. As you know, different production companies, different commercial production companies have things structured differently in what they have their HOPs doing. As a head of production, I was also a bidding producer, continued to do that. So, because I really loved and love the interactions with the directors and the agency during the bidding process and during the treatment pitching process as well. So I was very involved in that over the years. But in addition to that, as a head of production, you're responsible for making sure that all of the jobs that are actually in production at the time are compliant and following all of RSA's guidelines. So I'm responsible for doing startup meetings with all of the crews to make sure, even if they've been there before, every job, when they come back, I want to sit down with them. I want to hear about what their job is, and look at all the potential things that we might need to keep track of, make sure they're up to speed with any union compliance changes. Now there's Department of Transportation regulations, and obviously this past year, COVID compliance. And then when the job is in production, if they have questions, they need to reach out to any union locals. I would be the one to interface and do that. And then when a job is wrapping, or if there's an insurance claim, it's keeping track of all of those issues as well. Sort of being the point person for the production, making sure that everybody's staying on track. So that's a big job right then. And they're doing contracts for vendors, just making sure that RSA, being so high profile, kind of has a target on its back. Like, we have to be ultra compliant and really set a good example, and our reputation's at stake. We want to make sure when we're on location that we are doing our best to minimize the impact we're going to have, because it is always really impactful, obviously. We have a reputation to maintain and a quality to maintain. So that is definitely was falling under my purview.
And what is the ethos at RSA, or what's the culture there, would you say?
It's evolving all the time. It was, I have watched it. It was a much bigger company, I would say. When I started there, we had various divisions that were no longer focused on as much, which was like a virtual reality branded content division. There were more executive producers, and so it was a different animal. And over the past couple of years, 2 or 3 years, we've become more of a lean, mean fighting machine, scaling down. There's a lot of pressures in the market, which meant we really just couldn't be as top heavy as I would say we were. But it has always been an amazing place to work that felt like family, because it is a family business. And I have never felt like it was a political environment where I had to watch my back or I wasn't fully supported. It really has that kind of, that's our intention. And that is very much the way we were all treated. And that starts at the top down. The work ethic is relentless. I mean, it is not a place where you can be slacking off. Everybody works really hard all the time, 100%. It's just the nature of our business, and it's the example set by Ridley and everybody who works around him. So.
And so is that that's what you sort of put out there is the family stamp, let's say.
Yes, I mean we have
team.
Yeah, we have 30 some odd other directors, and then even different directors on the London roster and Amsterdam roster. But yes, that is ultimately, this is Ridley, Tony Tony in memoriam, and Jake and Luke and Jordan, his kids.
Wow.
So they all work. They're all fantastic directors.
And what is it like being like, because you were saying you love the bidding and that initial process. How do you like to work with these visionary directors? Do you find that there's a certain methodology that you need to do to let them be creatively free, or do you put in creative ideas as well?
I would say yes, I do. I'd like to make my contribution, but I'm just there for feedback, or to help somebody maybe articulate what's in their head a little bit better. It is the bidding and treating process is it takes a lot, because you're putting together a written presentation with visuals. You sometimes have writers and artists involved with the director. Sometimes the director writes it himself, does his own layout, pulls his own visuals. It really runs the gamut. And it is we're given a storyboard or a black dot on a white page, but sometimes we're given a fairly clear storyboard, or package of boards, and you have a budget that target, and you're trying to figure out how many days, what can we do for this budget, whether we can present something that's higher, because maybe sometimes we're in an environment where we can, and then sometimes we're in a situation where no, there really just isn't another dime here, so you have to hit this number. And then it's like, well, you know what? You can't do 4 scripts. You don't have the resources to do all 4 of these scripts. And, so it's a give and take. It's a dialogue with the agency producer that's really, really important. We are there to serve them. And if a director takes on a short form project, no matter who they are, they do know that ultimately they're serving a client and trying to present something that the client's going to want to, is realizing what it is that the client wants to see.
So for you, why commercials? What was the light bulb of that, as opposed to say theater or long form? Or
well, I came out of the theater, so I definitely, but like summer stock, so I was used to like cranking out projects, and I was a PA. Somehow I landed as a production assistant on the final season of Pee-wee's Playhouse, and in the animation department. And then when that job finished, I just, the wonderful executive producer of the animation, opened her Rolodex and gave me a whole bunch of people to reach out to. And it just happened that one of them was a commercial producer. And because I had, at that point, and I am older than I look, I had decent computer skills, and I had my own little Macintosh that I could take around with me. And I actually knew Excel. And they handed me on this, they had me come in to help them wrap on a job with $64,000 in petty cash. And they had the spreadsheet on paper, like with pages stuck together, and they opened it up on the conference table and was like, I'm like, why don't we just put this into Excel? And so I started doing that. I mean, at that point when I started, we were still hand typing call sheets. And I was like, why aren't we doing this on the computer? So really, I mean, that's, no, I mean, when I started in freelance commercials, I was holding my telephone was in a big leather case that I strapped on around my arm. I brought my entire dot matrix printer into the motorhome with my Mac and my, phone, which is enormous. So yeah, I've been doing this a long time.
And what was it for you though that made you fall in love with that, especially when you came from like front of camera performing?
Well, I think that I think one of the reasons I love the theater was we have all to be together, create something. It's pretty quick. There's a lot of urgency, and you're part of the team, and you're making a contribution. And from the moment I started, even as a PA on set and as an office PA in the motorhome, I still felt like I was very much part of what was going on. And it was super important what I was doing and the contribution I was making. And that makes me happy. That just suited me. Just short form, I'm not sure if it's still the case, but in those days, PAs got paid better than they did in feature PAs. So it was like double what I would have made if I had accepted, if I'd gone on to a movie and a film set. And it was easier to break in, I think, probably. And it just suited me, and I just stayed on that train. And, so.
Well, also, it seems to me that that is the gods of luck looking down on you, because the top down were respectful and honoring you and seeing you, as opposed to disrespectful and, oh, there's a PA who's like a no-name worker.
Well, it's interesting because you are only on a project for 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. If you do get in a situation where you work with someone and you don't like the way they work, you don't ever have to work for them again. Your livelihood doesn't depend on that one producer. And I did have one time when this producer, it was more important for them to get their car washed. And we were on a job where we had done like 5 company moves that day. And they sent one of the PAs with their car to get it washed. And that PA kind of disappeared. This is in the day before everybody had cell phones. We had pagers and stuff, and he wasn't responding, the PA. And they sent me to start looking for this person, because it turns out it wasn't actually just the producer's car. They were going to use the producer's car as the picture vehicle.
Oh, wow.
And he had sent it away offset. And by the time I got back, 4 of us had been sent off to try to figure out where this guy had gone. And he had gone, and the producer made such a big deal about that. The car wash had to be a brushless cloth thing. I mean, the PA had gone 40 minutes away from the location with the car. Mm-hmm. And we got it back and did the shot, but it was so that producer, it was all about the producer. It wasn't about the job or the people or the resources that he was expending on getting this car washed. I mean, so I never worked for that person again. Absolutely said never, never. And if I ever heard their name come up, I'd go, oh, I'm not so sure. That's the thing, is you really are only as good as your reputation. Mm. And as I went through the years, the people that I saw doing things that I didn't agree with, if their name comes across my desk, I'm like, stay away. I mean, that's just, you don't need to die. Life's too short.
It is that small industry. And tell us, so you've been a part of the board of the AICP, the Association of Commercial Producers, for how long?
I am in my 5th year on the board, and it's an election cycle every 2 years. So
that's great. Impressive.
Yeah.
And what are you guys seeing as a production company industry? What's happened like 5 years ago to where we are now, let's say?
I mean, it's hard to necessarily pinpoint it as 5 years, but definitely the changes going on in production due to the social media influencers, certainly a lot of the creative that we now see features influencers and these people. And of course, we now have to shoot, or at least be able to deliver footage that can be multi-purposed in various different formats, whether you're center cutting something or or, shooting something vertical, or, it's like you have to think about all these things. The last thing you want to necessarily have to do is shoot something with multiple passes to accommodate. So, we were trying different things like rigging, the vertical format or square format, or, like to the other camera. And then I think basically we've now settled on, I see most of the time center cutting. Like you don't have to reshoot it, just keep in mind, and you'll put on your monitor on the VTR, you'll see the tape and all the, not tape, but the feed with all the different aspect ratios, and you try to be considerate of what you're going to do with that. The other trends, which I think started before 5 years ago, but from a business affairs standpoint, agencies, clients now clients rely on cost consultants.
And what is that?
Cost consultants is like I provide a budget. We provide a budget to the agency. The client then sends it to the cost consultants. The cost consultant looks at it and looks for ways that you might be able to cut the costs, reduce them more. And I'll get these long lists with like 50 items of feedback. And it'll be like, could you reduce your allowance for craft service? I saw on a previous bid, you only charged $650 for this. Would you please match that on this bid? So they're keeping track of everything.
Every dollar.
And our history.
Wow.
And what's really scary is that I'll get feedback from a job on one agency that has the same cost consultant as another agency, and they will refer to something I did for a completely different job that was with a different agency, thinking, and I'll be like, so they're sharing, which they shouldn't be doing, really. I'll respond to them. I don't have to make every adjustment. They're recommending these things, but I have to answer as to why I can or can't. So, or what I'm willing to do. But it's like you're constantly saying, that was for a completely different director, very different creative. The camera package that I needed on that job is not the camera package we need on this job. I cannot match that price.
And in your job as an executive producer, are those the details you're looking at now, or is this do you have a different purview of the scene?
It's a slightly adjusted, I would say, in that I have been able to bring in somebody as an HOP who is handling a lot more of the details of the jobs themselves. I can focus much more on the director and be more involved with them in the creative. And then I'm actually much more involved on the shoot day, on the shoots days. Basically there as support to, the sort of the last line of defense for our director or some issues, talking to the agency producers, making sure that people are getting what they want to get. The producer handles that for the most part, but I'm there as like a backup or a backstop. I'm really there mostly as support. But in a situation where I had a shoot before we were all locked down, I was down in Panama, and we had a film permit to do big fireworks display on the beach, and it was amazing, but we were really running behind a bit just because of weather and it being Panama. Things were going on, and it was a really tough day, and our permit was going to end at 11:30 at night, and we were there and we still had one more round of fireworks to do, and I had to pull the plug. One, because we were going into massive amounts of overtime, which I didn't want to do. But two, the permit. It's like everyone was saying, well, we should stay. Who's going to care? Even though the permits, the fireworks permit says absolutely no fireworks after 11:30. Who cares? And I'm like, Panama cares. And if someone comes, they can pull our permit for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do anything to us here tonight, but they could prevent us from shooting tomorrow. And we're about to shut down the entire old town and run 100 extras through it on a race. We have like a huge day the next day. And so I pulled the plug on the shoot. We had everything we needed. We had 2 great rounds of the fireworks. We didn't need the 3rd one, but everyone was just so excited. It's like, no. So that you're there just to sometimes be the voice of reason or the, final word, so to speak. And then obviously you want to make everybody happy. And if in post-production something's going on, you sometimes have to participate there, make sure that the director might be getting the input that he wants to in the edit, because unfortunately in the US, agencies basically take over the editorial process. And it's directors really want to keep their fingerprints on the project. And sometimes that's really difficult to do. So you're trying to navigate that experience for the director and make sure they feel like they're getting the input on the color grade, all those things that in Europe, directors see the projects all the way through finishing. It's their edit, it's their color grade. In the US, it's the agency's creatives edit and color grade. So try, and we have a lot of European directors who don't understand that necessarily, or really don't like it. So we have to navigate those emotions, feelings, try to keep everybody happy with their eye towards, let's deliver the best project we can.
Being a global company, how does it work between your different, is it like a McDonald's with different places, or is everything independent, or is it one ball of wax? How's that work?
Right now that this is part of the evolution of our company, we used to be much more US and then RSA UK, RSA Ltd in the UK. Since we've kind of contracted, we are really now a global company that is interacting with each other weekly, if not more often than that. We're reaching out to the sales teams in London all the time for like, we don't have anybody for this project. Do you? Let's put reels together for these people that people in the US may not know. We are much more closely allied with the UK, which is wonderful. I mean, I've had relationships they have superb executive producers there that I've known since I started at RSA 13 years ago. And it's delightful to be able to kind of work with them in a partnership at a different level than I ever did before. And if there's a Europe or London-based agency that needs to do shoots in the US, will service for our office there. Or if we have a US agency, we just did an EA Sports thing and ended up shooting it on stage in London with a London director. And they serviced it for us. So it goes back and forth all the time.
And just in a bigger sense, what are you seeing? What's it going on in agency land now from your sort of AICP board vision? How, before COVID, it was one thing, and now in COVID, are you seeing different movements that are happening?
Well, right now, certainly everybody's, I think, budgets are really challenged, more so than they were. I think agencies have gone through similar contractions as all of, as have a lot of production companies in the US. So, I think probably they're not happy with the cost consultant process either. In some cases, they're getting taken completely out of the loop in terms of budgeting, and they don't even get to see the budgets.
Wow.
They just get the bid letter that explains what they're getting. You're getting 4 10-hour days, blah, 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 blah. This is what we're doing. I think that they have been given a lot more work to do as individual creatives, and they're having to juggle more projects. And so I feel like they push a lot more onto us and our what used to happen is we used to have to do, in the old days, there were no treatments. There were phone calls. And then there were sometimes visual presentations with photographs. And then it became this treatment process where we're doing visuals and scripts and everything. And now, after they get that, they're coming back to us for a revision that they know their client. So it's not going to have any buzzwords or anything that the client doesn't want to see. Don't have that picture of someone with tattoos that freaks them out, and they'll have us redo certain visuals and tweak language. And so it's, I think they used to maybe do that themselves, or they didn't have to show the client the treatments or whatever, it's just, so I think they're all kind of a bit overburdened for the most part. And we have shorter lead times to do things, to try to put together bids, and shorter prep sometimes. That has been, I think, with COVID, with all that, actually, some places have really actually been able to navigate their relationship with their client to buy more time, which has been a blessing and unusual, because it would not be unusual for me to get a whole 8-day package dumped on me on December 24th.
Wow.
That has to shoot, the first week of January.
Right.
Like, just ridiculous last minute things like that. So there's just more and more of that as time goes on, I feel like.
What do you find, because it used to be, there was times when, in the olden days, where the director was king, and there was times that the agency was king, and now it seems like the client is king. And would you say that, just coming from where I've been the recommend from the agency, and that seems to me the kiss of death, because the minute you're the recommend, the client doesn't want to listen to the agency, and they go, we want our own random human.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to say they're necessarily more scared, but it sure feels like in certain places, the creative directors don't have the last word anymore. And it's interesting to be on the Zooms during shoots, because this is somewhat new for me, and I think the Zoom format is good to really learn. This is, you'll hear the client feedback during the shoot and how much deference the creatives seem to have. It used to be the old days, like whatever Joe Pitka wanted to do as a director, everybody else did, because chances were it was going to be friggin' brilliant. So, there used to be, I think, and probably there's still some directors. I mean, when we work with some of our celebrity directors, everyone is thrilled to just get what they're doing. And those happen, once a year, once every 2 years, once every 3 years. Those love, the top line projects at that. I mean, Ridley did a Hennessy job a couple of summers ago, and they totally let him run with it and do whatever he wanted to do. And he's shooting something right now, which is similar. So that, there's definitely both things happening.
Is that fun for you at that point, or is there a whole nother new stressors that come with having Ridley doing a show and client expectation and stuff like that?
It's always fun when we have those projects. This one is running out of Europe, so I'm not integrally involved, but it's nicer when the budgets are bigger. It's always easier. Yes, you have to keep track of all those things, but you have more contingency, you have more room. Right now, I mean, I'm delivering budgets that are within a penny of the quotes I'm getting from the equipment people, it's just ridiculous. Just to try to hit the numbers that we're being given.
And And have you seen different production companies contract because of why?
I don't know. I mean, I can, when the work stopped, I mean, we completely stopped except for some of the user generated projects and some of those. We got, those ridiculous asks during, March, April, May. Do you have a director who has 3 kids and an American looking kitchen? You know,
I do.
or
I got some of those things. Am I married and do I, have 3 dogs?
Right, exactly. So there was that kind of work going on, or we're dropping a package outside somebody's door and they're going to go shoot it themselves. So there was almost so little money. Because if you budgeted those projects, there was like, you could budget it for $10,000-$15,000, and so what's your markup going to be? Right. $3,000 if you're really lucky. So you can't survive on that.
Right.
So I think everybody had to do what they could do to know that, as we'd make it through. Mm-hmm. And we don't know, now that we're back up and running, we have great safety protocols in place. So far, industry has been pretty successful. I don't know of any like clusters that have been attributed to a commercial production. There certainly have been individual instances of an individual testing positive or whatever, but nothing that they're looking at us like they look at the meat packing industry or something. So.
Exactly. Well, yeah, it's a little fly under the radar. We do have a great question from Leora, and this is, so in the future, what do you think are going to be ups and downs of being an EP?
Oh boy. I mean, downs are always ups. There's a lot of ups. There's this just getting to watch directors work, helping them get work is a real pleasure. Seeing what they do, helping everybody realize their vision. The travel, if we ever start traveling again, is something I'm really looking forward to. One of the reasons why I didn't pursue being an EP earlier on in my life is that I, raised my son. I didn't want to be gone for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. So I'm looking forward to being able to be more integrally involved in the projects that way. And downside is you have to wear a lot of, if something goes wrong, you have to try to figure out how to solve it. And I don't know that it's a downside, but these are the challenges that I expect to have more of. Trying to come up with solutions when something does perhaps go a little haywire. Sometimes there are ego issues from directors that you have to try to work with or create space for. I certainly am anticipating probably more late nights like I just had last night where I had to work until like 2 o'clock in the morning, putting together a package to get out the door to an agency. And that's also partly because we're wearing more hats. I'm really looking forward to when we are fully back up and running with full support again, and we're back at the office and there's that kind of energy, day-to-day energy. I'm really looking forward to that. So
great.
And I answered the question.
Oh, that was a great answer. And one question I'd love to ask is, if you were going to do something else, if you had came back in another career form, what would that be?
Oh gosh. Another career form. I mean, I originally started in my life wanting to be a veterinarian and a doctor, but I think I would have chosen to do something with animals, probably, or because that's really one of my favorite things is watching wildlife. And I think I would have maybe come back as a documentary, wildlife documentary filmmaker. So I could just spend months out in the bush watching things. That's what I would have done.
I like, well, there's still room there. There's still room.
That's right.
Exactly. Well, this has been so fantastic. We are at the end of our time, and I
Wow.
love talking to you, and the audience loved it. And what's the website address that they can just check out RSA's work at, if you could share that?
RSA Films, FILMS.com. Please go check it out. And there, and all of the social media links and all there will be there as well. So
okay,
yes,
brilliant.
please check us out. And LinkedIn, I actually do look at all the LinkedIn things that come into me, and I am very often will accept people's LinkedIn from all over the world. So please reach out.
That's a great opening, audience. There you go. And you have a beeline to Elicia. Thank you so much. This is so wonderful. And thank you, New York Film Academy, for always hosting the 2020 and making this such a special place for everyone to meet. And with that, everyone stay safe and good luck with everyone's shoots. And bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for having me. Bye.